Hi, I'm Chris from chrisamericos.com, where we help you level up and show the world the best version of yourself. In this video, we're going to talk about the pronunciation of this word. This word usually describes the way or style that someone expresses themselves. For example, the verbiage he used in his proposal was strange. Or, when you're reading legal documents, remember the importance of verbiage. But it can also describe when someone uses too many words. For example, his speech was full of verbiage, so he rewrote it. Or, I couldn't understand the contract because it was full of technical verbiage. Here's how Gary V pronounces it.
It's not the circumstance, it's the verbiage. You actually have parents, they just suck.
You see, native speakers seem to be confused about how to pronounce this word. Some pronounce it verbiage.
And I didn't have the verbiage at that point in time, but I would suggest that it was terrible customer service.
While others pronounce it verbiage.
Practicing saying it out loud so that you get comfortable with the verbiage so it keeps you on track and on point.
I personally pronounce this word verbiage, and I believe the spelling of the word reflects this pronunciation. However, English words frequently include confusing spelling and silent letters that even native speakers mispronounce. Check out some of my other videos where we talk about other mistakes that native speakers make. And if you want to learn English, subscribe to this channel. But is it a mistake to pronounce this word differently? No. If someone says verbiage instead of verbiage, that's not a mistake. It's an acceptable variation. It's okay. Don't get your panties in a bunch, Kevin. British English dictionaries told me that verbiage is the correct pronunciation.
When you sweep away all the speculation and verbiage, that is the choice.
While an American English dictionary told me that both pronunciations are acceptable.
That's what they do. The verbiage, the rhetoric, right? The pristine purity of the language.
So if it's a situation where the verbiage is the same for each state.
So in American English, there are two correct pronunciations. Verbiage.
If I may use this verbiage, you will understand why God created it.
And verbiage.
Just the verbiage that she uses is very soft, and it's just so nice. It's such a great workbook.
This is not correct, but it's still understandable.
To up my miracle to verbiage ratio.
So how should you pronounce it? I think you should say verbiage.
People may not understand this. Can you explain in simple terms, well, first of all, why do you have to have this verbiage?
So they try to bamboozle their readers with highfalutin verbiage.
The word of God came to them in direct verbiage.
When they indict, the indictment is filled with verbiage that is press-worthy.
You can read about our next speaker, David Hornick, in the guide. There's lots and lots of verbiage about all the wonderful things he's done.
Taking notes takes the instructor's legalese, accounting verbiage, and puts it into your own words.
As the verbiage of the executive order suggests, the impacts of those policies on sacred sites.
And I implied very directly that they wrote it together, and CCA wanted a correction issued saying very clearly that they were in the same room, but it was not, the language and verbiage was never decided on together. There was no communication about that, whatever.
Now, when it comes down to that actual verbiage of the word sucks, I would not use that normally in any kind of like a scholarly article or research article that I would publish.
This is a very unusual piece of verbiage.
Who's the one who has an upper hand? And this is the exact verbiage. It's the person who is perceived to have the least to lose. That's the person with the greatest bargaining advantage.
Coincidence is a word for the thin-souled gambler. Destiny is the verbiage fit for you on this day of your arrival.
Oh, I get confronted about this and I don't have the right verbiage for this. And then people dismiss me and they say, you must not be telling the truth if you don't know how to explain it to me.
Based on social media with projections and an almost overwhelming amount of verbiage constantly coming at you, it is still a family or a family's musical.
Here are some other words that start with V-E-R-B. The word verb describes an action word like to go, to run, to jump. The word verbal describes spoken communication. For example, they had an interesting verbal exchange. Or, I'll give you verbal instructions on what to do next. If we say that someone is verbose, it means that they use a lot of words. For example, she has a verbose writing style. Or, I avoid verbose authors who write 500-page books. But if we say that someone is a verbalist, it means that they're skilled at using words. For example, his new heart turned him from a rather witty verbalist to a soft-hearted altruist. If a person tells you a phrase verbatim, it means that they told you the exact same words that someone else did. The word verbatim basically means that you use the exact same words. For example, I'm not going to read you the whole email verbatim over the phone. Verbicide is when a person intentionally tries to change the meaning of a word or change what people think a word means. For example, if the president were not guilty of so much verbicide, he would be able to share information with Congress. When you want to express your thoughts, you need to verbalize them. The verb to verbalize something means to express it with words or verbal communication. For example, many of the students were too stressed to verbalize their feelings. And the word verbiage describes the way or style in which a person expresses themselves. For example, in a friendly debate, there's no need to use offensive verbiage. Hey everybody, Chris here from chrisamericos.com, where we help you level up and show the world the best version of yourself. And in today's video, I'm going to show you mistakes that I have made when speaking English. And I'm a native speaker. My family is English speaking, only English speaking. They don't speak any other languages. My grandparents don't speak other languages. Parents don't speak other languages. And I've always been an English speaker all of my life, and I still make mistakes. So you, someone who is learning English and trying to improve your level of English, you should not be afraid to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes. You make mistakes. Everybody. So let's get started. I'm going to give you some words that I have made mistakes pronouncing. So I'm going to show you the incorrect pronunciation first, and then I'm going to tell you the correct pronunciation. Adverbs are a great way to spice up a sentence, but this word is not stressed on the second syllable. It's stressed on the first syllable. It means you do it with a lot of feeling or emotion.
And sometimes something that you love is vehemently disliked by hundreds or thousands or even millions of people.
Now, if you were Tiffany and you vehemently disagreed with his position, what would you say?
For example, he vehemently denied the allegations. Now, that might have been a new word for you, and it's a higher level word. But this next word is one that maybe you've pronounced correctly all your life, but in my life, I've always pronounced it incorrectly. And the way that I pronounced it is Armenian. And that's not right. The name of this country is Armenia, and the adjective from this country is Armenian.
And we're not supported by a powerful state. There was a little tiny Armenian Republic at the time.
And what I have is this guy. This is an Armenian cucumber.
It has a long E sound. For example, he met an Armenian man at the train station. I guess I haven't said the word Armenian many times in the past, and no one has ever told me that I've been pronouncing it incorrectly. But thankfully, I made a mistake in a YouTube video and someone corrected me. You see, everybody makes mistakes. The next word means to do something in a playful way or to do something in a way that causes trouble. And the way I pronounced this word until I got to university was mischievous. I said, he's a mischievous boy, but that's not right. The correct pronunciation is mischievous. It's stressed on the first syllable, so it's mischievous. He's a mischievous boy.
So this is a classic example of a Swedish tomte, a little mischievous elf.
Some of them are a little mischievous.
Our next word is commonly mispronounced by a lot of native speakers. I learned the correct pronunciation when I moved to Italy and lived there for 2 years. Before I moved to Italy, I always said espresso, but that's not the right pronunciation. It's actually espresso.
My own tests have determined a peak potency time for espresso
of regular coffee and espresso.
There's no X sound at the beginning. It's espresso, not espresso. For example, he always buys an espresso on his way to work. And that's not the only word where native speakers sometimes say X when there's ES, and it's a mispronunciation. Another example of this is the word that when I was a child I pronounced escape, and that's not correct. There's no X sound. For example, the dangerous criminal escaped from prison.
And the tales I heard in there from my hospital bed were courageous and compelling, and an incredible escape from my family's own predicament.
The air pressure inside of your middle ear can escape through your eustachian tube much easier.
Okay, the next word I mispronounced in a funny situation. I went to a shop and I saw that they had this strange word that I didn't know how to say, and I tried to say it, and they corrected me when I ordered it. It's a type of fruit, and I called it Acai. But the real name and the correct pronunciation is Acai.
And then you need to go forage for acai berries.
We were totally living the Florida life. We were having smoothies and acai bowls.
Doesn't really sound like an English word, right? That's because it's not. But hey, I still made a mistake. For example, would you like a smoothie with acai? Talking about food makes me hungry. So let's talk about it some more. The next word is a type of food that is associated with grease. If you go to a Greek restaurant, you might order this. And the way that I used to pronounce it was gyro or gyro. And I wasn't sure how to pronounce it, and every Greek restaurant I went to, I said it a little differently. But I finally learned the pronunciation is gyro.
The modern gyro became popular in Greece in the 1920s.
This is the place to get an authentic gyro, just like they serve in Greece at the Golden Fleece.
And when you're done with your gyro, let's have a drink. Before I started drinking, I mispronounced this word. I called it Cognac. And if somebody doesn't drink, then they might see this word and say the same thing. But later I found out that the correct pronunciation of this word is Cognac.
And then there's a photo of like a 65-year-old bald black guy in a towel drinking a cognac in a velvet robe.
And has his own brand of cognac, Douce.
The G-in combination in the middle of the word produces a ñ sound. So it's cognac. Would you like some cognac? For example, they stayed up all night drinking cognac. All right, that's enough about food and drinks. Let's go to the next word. And the next word is a word that I used to pronounce colonel. But then I learned that it's pronounced colonel.
This is Colonel Picard.
And by the way, I don't care what your pedigree is. I don't care if you're a military colonel, pilot, Air Force.
This is probably one of the strangest words in English. A colonel is a position in the military or the army. For example, call the colonel, we're under attack. The next word that I used to mispronounce is this word. I used to say Echelon, but that's not the right pronunciation. You see, a lot of words that come from French that include the combination CH in English are pronounced sh.
In the upper echelon, you've got really amazing insurance.
And what they're always looking for is the higher echelon people that are really pulling the strings.
And this word is no different. It's echelon, not echelon. And an echelon is basically a higher level. In fact, we often use the phrase the upper echelon. And this means the upper level. For example, after years of service, she's now in the upper echelon of city management. All of those words I have mispronounced in the past. Some of them when I was a child, some of them I learned when I got to university or when I moved to a different country. And I'm sure there are some words that I still mispronounce. You see, learning, and especially learning languages, isn't about being perfect or not making mistakes. It's the opposite. It's about making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. You need to own your mistakes. Don't let someone else take your mistakes and say that they mean something that they don't. In this video, I showed you my mistakes. These are my mistakes and you cannot have them. I made these mistakes, I learned from these mistakes, and this was a part of my growth and development as a native English speaker. If you're learning English as a second language or a foreign language, you're going to make mistakes. And if you're not open to learning from your mistakes, then your mistakes will hold you back. If you're open to learning from them and you take control of your mistakes and you say that they're only your mistakes and no one else's, then you can use those mistakes to make yourself an even greater, better person, English speaker, and a person who can help others too. If you're watching this video, then I know that you're focused on improving yourself and learning more. And that's why I want to invite you to our unlimited speaking practice program called English Every Day. You'll have opportunities to speak with native teachers, professional teachers, and students from around the world 5 times every day or more. You can join all the lessons. Every lesson is on a different topic, and speaking with different teachers who have different accents will really help you understand English more. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to press like, press subscribe, leave a comment down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Hey everybody, Chris here from chrisamericos.com, where we help you level up and show the world the best version of yourself. Today I'm going to tell you how to pronounce this word, but different native speakers might pronounce it differently, and that's what makes this a challenge. What is a bias? A bias is something that you believe that is not completely objective. So, for example, someone can ask me, who is a better singer, John, Kevin, or Connor? Well, Connor is my brother, so I'm going to say Connor, because I have a bias. And now Kevin and John can say, hey, that's not fair, he has a bias, that's his brother. Or they can say, that's not fair, he's biased, that's his brother. So we can say to be biased, or we can say to have a bias. We can also say to have a bias against something or against someone. For example, we can say, John is biased against Chinese people. When we say that someone is biased against something, it means that they don't like it or they probably won't choose that thing. But we can also say that someone is biased towards something, and this means that they like it and they will probably choose it. It's also important for me to remind you that some native speakers might say toward and some might say towards. So you could be biased toward someone, and you could also be biased towards someone. And those are the same thing. The opposite of being biased is being objective. Objective means that you consider all of the points or options fairly. But if you're biased, then something or someone has influenced you, and now you can't make a fair decision. We might also talk about social problems using the word bias. For example, racial bias talks about unfair ideas or beliefs that people have about races. There's also gender bias, unfair beliefs that people have about men or about women. And the word bias is singular. We pronounce it bias. But how do you pronounce the plural form? You see, some people pronounce this word biases with the is sound at the end. And other people pronounce this word biases with the ease sound at the end. And today I'm going to show you small video clips of different native speakers pronouncing this word differently.
Screw that. Like, I'm not going to let people's biases, inhibit really good work. And I actually, when I'm working with other people, I think a lot of new and interesting things kind of come out of that.
Is that all of us have our own political biases, which affect our view of the world.
As cops, we're human beings who bring all of our biases to the job.
Accept that some of these biases are lurking inside of our heads.
Profit off of segmenting us and feeding us personalized content that both validates and exploits our biases.
What if we could unlearn the biases that we have towards people in poverty?
How are they thinking? How is their brain wired? What biases are they most susceptible to? Where are their receptors?
Whereas fake news is like, it makes you feel all kind of, I've always been right about everything, and this completely confirms all my biases. And
to understand another person is to understand the biases and assumptions that give rise to their behavior.
The author isn't trying to hide what their biases are. They're telling the reader.
Then we can start to become confident that they're not imposing their own cultural biases on the drawings.
But how do you know what's correct? Well, if you look online and you go to dictionaries, it says that biases is the correct pronunciation. And I personally say biases, but I've heard people say biases. So to help you understand how to pronounce this word correctly, I decided to explain why some people pronounce it biases and why it's correct to say biases. It's the difference between is and ease. So a short sound and a long sound. Now, some teachers might tell you that there's only one right way to do something. Sometimes that's true, but with languages, that's rarely true. And just because someone does it a little differently or not the standard way, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a mistake. In this video, I'm telling you that the correct pronunciation is biases, but some people say biases, and that's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a mistake, but if there were a test following the standard rules of English, then it would probably be considered a mistake. The goal of everyday communication is to understand and to be understood. So it doesn't really matter if you say one or the other when you're talking to someone as long as they understand you. However, there is a reason why some native speakers might make this mistake and pronounce it biases instead of biases. Let's watch some examples of native speakers in professional situations pronouncing this word biases with the long e's sound at the end.
We all have our biases.
Especially stressful situations in which our biases and threat responses go wild in our mind.
Those people are all fallible. They're tired, they're hungry, they have biases.
Why are some people, sometimes at least, able to cut through their own prejudices and biases and motivations and just try to see the facts and the evidence as objectively as they can?
A lot of these things might have a basis in your implicit biases or things that you've heard, portrayals you've seen on television. And so when people are doing something like conducting a voice interview, often the implicit biases they have about voice can influence the decisions that they're making.
So is it a mistake that they pronounce it this way? Dictionaries and other resources tell us that this is not the right way to pronounce the word. It should be biases. So why do they pronounce it like that? Well, there's a category of words in English that came from Greek that end with "-sis." And in English, this ending usually sounds like "-sis." And those words are singular. They describe one thing, one action, one concept. But they can also have a plural form. And their plural form sounds like "acies," not "assis," but "acies." For example, the word hypothesis. It has the "assis" ending, and if we want to make it plural, it becomes hypotheses with the long e's sound at the end. Another example of this is the word nemesis, which means enemy. And if we want to say more than one nemesis, then it's nemesis. Or when you're writing something in English, you might use parentheses. Another example is the word synthesis. You can have one synthesis and you can have two syntheses. And when you're finishing your degree at your university, you might have to do a thesis. One thesis, two theses. With those words, the plural sounds like ease. And probably the speakers of these videos believe that the pronunciation of the word biases is supposed to be biases because of how these other Greek words change. Parentheses, nemesis, genesis, why not biases? But biases is a member of a different category of words. The singular form is bias, and we have a pronunciation rule that tells us when a singular word ends with the s sound, the plural ending should sound like is. For example, one kiss, two kisses, one horse, two horses, one dress, two dresses, one bias, two biases. And the word biases isn't the only word that native speakers sometimes mispronounce because they think that it's part of the category of "-sis" ending words. Another word that is commonly pronounced in different ways, or you might say mispronounced by native speakers, is the word processes. Again, the singular form is process, and we need to add is at the end, so it's processes. In British English, speakers usually say processes, but some American English speakers might pronounce it processes or processes. I don't pronounce it that way, and to me, it doesn't sound right, but some native speakers pronounce it this way too. Again, if we were taking an exam, then it would probably be wrong, but because real life is not an exam, it probably doesn't matter. So what's the correct pronunciation of this word? I think it's biases, but I'm going to let you decide for yourself. Write a comment down below and let me know what you think the right answer is. And while you're down there, don't forget to press like, press subscribe, click that bell button so you get notified every time a new video comes out, and I will see you in the next video. Hey everybody, Chris here from chrisamericos.com, where we help you level up and show the world the best version of yourself. And in today's video, we're going to talk about how to pronounce compound words in English. And I promise you, no matter what your level of English is right now, you will learn something new in this video, even if you're a native speaker. So let's go! Before we get started, let me remind you that it's our job to help you learn English, and it's your job to subscribe. So make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. First of all, what is a compound word in English? Well, this is just when we take two other words and we put them together. It's not always two words, it might be more than two words. And there are a lot of rules about how we pronounce these words. But when you're learning the rules of a language, it's important to start by learning the basic rules and then learn the more difficult rules. And the basic rule of pronouncing compound words in English is about compound nouns. A noun is a person, a place, a thing, or or an idea. And there's a rule about pronouncing compound nouns. Usually, we stress the first word. But there might only be one word because these two nouns are pushed together, and in that case, you just stress the first element, the first part of the word. For example, in the word sunrise or sunset, we always stress the first part of the word, sun, not the last part of the word, set or rise. So it's always sunset or sunrise, and it's never sunset or sunrise. This is a really easy rule to remember, and it's the first rule that you should think about when you see a compound noun. In fact, this rule works about 90% of the time, so it's a really good rule to know. We use it a lot. For example, with bus driver, school teacher, Papa Bear, computer desk, workspace, guest house, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Now that's the simple rule, but if your English level is a little higher, you might be interested in more of a challenge. So let's look at 4 rules that can tell us about how to pronounce compound words in English. The first rule is the same. If there's 2 nouns together, we usually stress the first element or the first word. The second rule tells us that if the first element or first part of this compound word is like an adjective, and it ends with an ed, then we're going to stress the second word. And a good example of this is the word bad-tempered, or open-minded, or well-balanced, or result-oriented, or even self-confident. It's important that we don't stress the first word or first element of this compound. That just won't sound natural. So always remember it's open-minded, and it's never open-minded. It's always bad-tempered and never bad-tempered. And it's always self-confident and never self-confident. But before I continue to the third rule, subscribe to this channel. And remember, sometimes the stress of the word will change in the sentence to show a special focus on something. So if we're discussing people who are open-minded and people who are closed-minded, then I might want to compare open and closed. And in this case, I might stress the word open in the word open-minded. And that will sound different from how we usually pronounce it. It will have a different stress because I'm focusing on one part of the word and making a comparison. So usually we're going to say, John is very open-minded. But if we're comparing open-minded and closed-minded, I might say, John's very open-minded. Mike says, I think John is closed-minded. And I say, no, open-minded people do this and closed-minded people do this. You see, so when I want to compare the two things, I might stress the word differently because I want to make a comparison. Usually when we're speaking, we're going to follow these rules that we're talking about now. And that brings us to the third rule. If the first element of the compound is a number, then we're usually going to stress the end of the word or the final part of the word. For example, in the words first class and second class. And then if we add on another word like ticket, we can say he got a first class ticket. So now we shift the stress over to the word ticket. But if we talk about first class, like the area of the airplane that he's sitting in, we can say, oh, where's John? He's in first class. But if we talk about his seat, we could say he has a first class seat. And if we just talk about him as a person, we can say John is a first class guy, or he's a first class person. Another example of this would be the phrase 5-finger discount. This is some sort of idiom that means to steal something, to take it without paying. We can say John went to the shop and he got the 5-finger discount. It means he used his 5 fingers to take this thing and he didn't pay. He stole it. Again, the stress is on the final element of this compound. Rule number 4 is about compounds that act as adverbs, and they also get a final stress. Just think about directions on a map. Someone can go north or south, but they can also go northeast or southwest. And in these cases, we're going to stress the second part of this compound. We're not going to say northeast. No, we're going to say northeast. We might also use the word downstream, which tells us where something is in a river. If the water in the river is moving this way, then if something is downstream, it's near the bottom of the river. It's down the river. It's downstream. We can also use the word downwind. It means further away in the direction that the wind is traveling. So if the wind is going this way and something is here, we can say it's downwind. And the stress will be on the final part of this compound. compound. Another example is, he jumped into the swimming pool head first. And it doesn't matter what part of the body we talk about. It's always going to be stressed on the final part of the compound. So we can say, he went into the water head first, foot first, knee first, arm first. It doesn't matter, because we're describing how he did this action, and that makes this compound an adverb. An adverb helps us describe an action, so it gives us more information about a verb. How did he go in the water? Head first. Now, those are rules that you may have heard before, or maybe you haven't heard them before, but they're really useful and they're relatively easy to remember. Unfortunately, English doesn't always follow the rules, and there are some more complicated, more interesting rules that we're going to talk about right now. So make sure you've subscribed to this channel and get ready for more right now. Sometimes the rule isn't about the position of the words, and it's not about how the words are used, it's about the words themselves. There's something called the manufacturer's rule. You probably remember that our first rule we talked about was when we have two nouns together, and we said that we usually stress the first word, like school bus and Papa Bear. But the manufacturer's rule tells us that if one of these words is the material or the substance that we made the second word out of, then we need to stress the second word. For example, the compound noun apple pie. We don't usually stress the first word. We don't usually say apple pie. No, instead we say apple pie. It's a pie that's made from apples. So it's an apple pie. That's different from an apple tree, because an apple tree is not a tree that's made out of apples. It's a tree that has apples. And this does not follow the manufacturer's rule, and we do not shift the stress in this word. So it's an apple tree, but apple pie. Another example is with the word paper. You have a paper clip, which is a small piece of metal that holds papers together. So it's not talking about what something is made out of. The clip is not made out of paper. It's a clip for holding papers together. It's a paper clip. If we talk about a bag that is made from paper, then that's a paper bag. And you stress the word bag, not paper. So compare paper clip, but paper bag. Let's look at another example, this time with the word leather. For example, a leather jacket. Here, the jacket is made from leather, but maybe you have a different type of jacket. A jacket that looks like it's for a suit, but you can wear it without a suit. Maybe you just wear it with a t-shirt. This is called a sports jacket, or some people might call it a lounge jacket. No matter what you call it, you're going to stress the first word, because this is not about the material that it's made from. It's about the reason that you wear it, or the types of events that you can wear it for. You can wear it for lounging, you can wear it for watching sports, but that's not what it's made out of. It's not the material, it's not the substance. Okay, one more example of this. The word chocolate. We can say chocolate milk. This is milk that's made from chocolate. Chocolate is one of the ingredients. But if we have a company that produces chocolate or sells chocolate, then we have a chocolate company. Here we need to be really careful. If we say it's a chocolate company, then it's clear that this is a company that sells chocolate. But if we say it's a chocolate company, then this is a company that's made out of chocolate. And that's a funny idea to imagine. But every good rule in English has an exception, and this one has a few. There are some words that don't follow this rule, like juice, cake, bread, bar, and some others. So, for example, we would say orange juice. We would not say orange juice. So this doesn't follow the rule, and we just have to remember it. Or carrot cake, banana bread, chocolate bar. These are all exceptions to the rule, and every time that we use juice, cake, bread, and bar, we have to remember that that's an exception. Now, there's another rule here too, and this is about location, and that could be location in time or in space. Usually when one element of the compound is about the location, and usually that's going to be the first word, then the stress will be on the second word. And that might not be just where something is located or when something is located. It might just be that the word is connected to a location or has a location meaning. For example, Russian roulette, Turkish delight, Central Park, Silicon Valley. In all of these examples, we stress the second word. It follows the location rule. And this rule is different from the first rule that we learned at the beginning of this video, which is the simple rule about compound nouns that usually we stress the first word, right? Bus driver, Papa Bear. But Central Park and Silicon Valley And you can actually see this rule in a lot of different compound words, like April showers. This is from the phrase, April showers bring May flowers. In both compounds, April showers and May flowers, we stress the second word. And this phrase, April showers bring May flowers, means that in April there's a lot of rain, so that in May there are more flowers. So it's a phrase to make you happy in April when it's raining. We can also see this rule in other phrases like bottom line, or bedroom window, or the Middle Ages, or even 4 o'clock tea. Okay, I'm sure you're having a lot of fun remembering all of these rules and thinking in your head, okay, if I say this phrase, which word should I stress, right? It can drive you insane. No, you're not going insane yet? Well, that's good, because what I'm going to tell you right now will definitely make you go completely crazy. There are some compound nouns in English where if you stress the first word instead of stressing the second word, the meaning completely changes. You're saying something different just because you changed the stress in the word. And it's pretty crazy. So I know you're going to find this really, really interesting. Sometimes the stress in the word changes the meaning completely. Like in the compound noun, French teacher. If you stress the first word, French teacher, then this is a teacher who teaches the French language. But if you stress the second word, French teacher, then this is a teacher who is from France. The woman teaching my geography class is a French teacher. You might say, French teachers are stricter than American teachers. You might say, today I met a French teacher. In the same way you might say, I met a French banker, or a French waiter, or a French business person. But if we're talking about a teacher who teaches the language, we can say that Susie is a French teacher, and Bobby is a German teacher. Another example of this is a word that a lot of English students have trouble with. The word girlfriend. Because it's not clear if this is a girl who's my girlfriend, like we're in a relationship, or if this is a girl who I'm just friends with, right? If she's just a girlfriend. And so the shifting of the stress in this word can make a big difference. It can tell someone if you're in a relationship with that person or if they're just your friend. So again, if you're in a relationship, you can say, Susie is my girlfriend. Stress the first word. But if Susie is just my friend, we can say, yeah, Susie is one of my girlfriends. Stress the second word. We're not in a relationship, we're just friends. Another example is grandmother. Now, this one isn't very confusing because we only stress the first word. We say grandmother, she's my grandmother. A grandmother is my mother's mother, or my father's mother. But if we stress the second word, it's going to mean that this mother is just a great person. I have a grandmother. She's a grandmother. Grand means great. Today we don't usually say that, so this one isn't very confusing. But if you did stress the second word instead of the first word, that's what it would mean. Another example is woman doctor. If we say that someone is a woman doctor, it means she's a doctor who is a woman doctor. But if you say that she's a woman doctor, then this is a special type of doctor that helps women with women's problems. The kinds of problems that men don't have down there. Another example is English student. So if I say that you're my English student, then this means that you're a student who studies the English language. But if I say that you're my English student, then it means you're just my student and you're from England. What if I want to eat some ice cream? And there's a color, orange, but there's also a flavor, orange, like the fruit, an orange. So I can say, I want orange ice cream, and that means that I want ice cream with the flavor of orange. Or I can say, I want orange ice cream, and that means I want ice cream that is the color orange. Another example, steel factory. Now this is a factory, a place that makes something or produces something, and steel is a type of metal. If I work in a steel factory, this is a factory that makes steel. But if I work in a steel factory, then that means I work in a factory that's made from steel. This one follows the manufacturer's rule that we talked about earlier. Okay, let's look at another example, the word greenhouse. A greenhouse is a special building where we grow plants. We call it a greenhouse. Maybe I have a house and my house is green. Then I have a greenhouse, not a greenhouse. It's easy, right? And because I'm a teacher, I like to use a whiteboard. A whiteboard is a board where I can write something and you can see it. I might say, look at the whiteboard. And I stress the first word here, whiteboard. But a board can also be a piece of wood or another material, like a skateboard or a surfboard. So if I say that I have a white board, then this means I just have a board that's white. That's different from a whiteboard. There are a lot of words that include a color in them, and we have this issue where if we stress one part of the word, it means one thing, but if we stress another part of the word, it means something different. Like White House. The President of the United States lives in the White House. We stress white in the White House. But if we talk about your English teacher, me, Chris, I live in a white house. My house is white, but I do not live in the White House. What if we talk about an animal, a bear? There's one special type of bear called a black bear. But some bears that are not black bears are also black, and we can call them black bears. So what's more dangerous, black bears or black bears? Let me know the answer in the comments below. Another example of this is the word wet nurse. A wet nurse is a woman at the hospital who helps feed babies when the mother can't feed them for some reason. So this is a special type of nurse, a wet nurse. But if we just talk about a nurse who jumped into a swimming pool, well, that's a wet nurse, not a wet nurse. Even the phrase, good job, can be a little confusing, because if we say good job, stress on the second word, then this is a phrase that means you did something very well. But if we stress the first word, good job, that was a good job, then it's just about something we did that is good. Now, it sounds like it's the same thing. If we try to compare two things, Mike did a good job and John did a bad job. Good job, Mike. Do you see how the stress changed when I just wanted to say this phrase that means well done? Good job, Mike. You did a good job. So when we're talking about the specific thing that he did, it was a good job. But when I say it to him like congratulations, I say good job. And this is not only about 2-word phrases. It can also be about 3 words or more. For example, a mail delivery service. Is this a service that is about mail delivery, or is this a delivery service connected with mail? A mail delivery service or a mail delivery service? Another confusing example is student feedback system. So is it a student feedback system or is it a student feedback system? Now I'm sure by the end of this video, you have a lot of questions. You might be more confused than when you started watching it, and that's okay. That's why I made this video, so that you can always go back and watch it again and remind yourself of the rules and the exceptions to the rules. And there are some really good examples in this video that will help you practice and get used to the different stresses and different combinations of words. The next thing you need to do is subscribe to this channel so you get more videos like this, and then join us live for speaking practice, because that's the best way to improve your English. After you've done that, leave a comment under this video and let me know which part of this video was most useful or which part was most confusing. Maybe you have found other examples like this. I would love to see some more examples because there are so many examples of this in English. So write your examples under this video too. And while you're down there, don't forget to press like so that I know that I should keep making these videos. Thank you so much for watching this video. Share it with people who need to see it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.